The rain drummed against our loft windows like bullets, each drop a reminder that some storms never pass. I should have been sleeping, but sleep had become a stranger since Lena started her late marketing meetings with David. 3 months of lies, 3 months of watching my wife and business partner dance around their little secret like I was too stupid to notice. "You're still awake," Lena whispered, sliding through the door at 2:17 a.m. Her lipstick was gone, her hair disheveled, and she reeked of David's cologne mixed with wine and guilt. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I didn't turn from the window. Hard to sleep when your wife's out satisfying herself with your best friend. She froze. In the reflection, I watched her face cycle through surprise, fear, and finally that calculating look I'd learned to hate. "Eli, I don't know what you think. I think you've been screwing David Lynn for 3 months. I think you've been using our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms. I think you've been planning to cut me out of my own company." I turned to face her, keeping my voice steady. "But mostly, I think you're about to tell me something that's going to change everything." Lena's composure cracked. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was exhaustion from maintaining the charade. But she laughed, a bitter, broken sound that filled our expensive loft. "You want the truth, Eli? Fine. I'm pregnant. It's David's baby. He satisfies me in ways you never could, in bed, in business, in life. But here's the thing." She stepped closer, her eyes gleaming with that manipulative charm that had fooled me for 5 years. "You're still going to marry me. We can have it all. The company, the money, the perfect life. You'll raise David's child, and everyone will think we're the ideal couple." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, the rain intensified, matching the storm building in my chest. 5 years of marriage, 3 years building our tech startup from nothing, and this was how it ended, with my wife carrying my best friend's child and expecting me to smile about it. "Of course," I said finally, my voice calm as glass. "We'll have it all." She smiled, that victorious expression I'd seen her use on difficult clients. "I knew you'd understand. You're practical, Eli. That's what I've always loved about you." What she didn't see was the decision crystallizing in my mind like ice forming on a window. As Lena headed to the shower, probably to wash off the evidence of her betrayal, I opened my laptop and began typing. By dawn, I'd drained our joint business accounts, all $2.3 million of it. The patents for our revolutionary hardware designs were transferred to a shell corporation I'd registered months ago when I first suspected something was wrong. The wedding invitations had already been sent, time to send the cancellations. The next morning arrived gray and bitter, matching my mood perfectly. Lena was still sleeping off her confession when I sent the email that would detonate her carefully constructed world. Wedding canceled due to bride's pregnancy with best man's child. All business partnerships dissolved effective immediately. Satisfaction guaranteed. Eli Greene. I sent it to everyone, family, friends, business contacts, wedding vendors, 237 recipients who would spread the news like wildfire through our social circle. Then I changed the locks. By 9 a.m., I was at our startup's downtown office, watching David pace behind his glass-walled corner office like a caged animal. Our company, TechFlow Innovations, occupied the entire 15th floor of a gleaming building overlooking Boston Harbor. 3 years ago, we'd started with nothing but an idea and a shared dream. Now that dream was about to become David's nightmare. "Eli," David burst from his office, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled. "What the hell is this email? This isn't funny, man. People are calling me asking if I'm really sleeping with my wife, carrying on behind my back for 3 months, planning to squeeze me out of my own company." I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the panic in his eyes. "Which part isn't true, Dave?" His face went pale. Around us, the office had gone quiet, our 12 employees pretending to work while obviously listening to every word. "Look, we need to talk about this privately," David whispered, glancing around nervously. "Why? Lena wasn't private about it. Neither were you when you were using company funds for your little love nest at the Marriott." I stood up, pulling out my phone. "Should I read the credit card statements out loud? Room 1247. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. Very romantic, Dave. Very original." Tara Morrison, Lena's best friend and our office manager, appeared at David's shoulder like a vulture sensing carrion. "Eli, surely you're not serious about dissolving the partnership. Think about what you're throwing away." I laughed, a sound that made several employees look up nervously. "Throwing away? Tara, I built this company. Every patent, every innovation, every breakthrough, that was me. David handled the schmoozing and the funding, but the actual work, the actual genius, That was always mine. You can't just, David started. Actually, I can. I pulled out a thick manila folder. See, while you two were playing house, I was reading the fine print of our partnership agreement. Funny thing about infidelity clauses and moral turpitude provisions, they're very thorough. David's face went from pale to green. Eli, be reasonable. We can work this out. The company is worth millions now. Don't destroy everything over... Over what? Over my wife carrying your bastard? Over my best friend stabbing me in the back? Over 3 years of building something only to watch you two plan to cut me out? I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a whisper only he could hear. You wanted satisfaction, Dave. Now you get to find out what it costs. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Eli, I can't get into the apartment. The key doesn't work. This isn't funny. I showed the screen to David. Looks like your girlfriend needs a place to stay. Hope you've got room in that studio apartment your trust fund pays for. You changed the locks? Tara gasped. Eli, that's her home too. Was. Past tense. Amazing how quickly things change when you discover your wife's been satisfying herself with someone else's equipment. I gathered my folder and headed toward the elevator. Oh, and Dave, check your email. The sheriff should be serving you with papers any minute now. As the elevator doors closed, I heard David's panicked voice. What papers? Eli, what papers? The lawsuit was beautiful in its simplicity. Patent theft, breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of company funds, and violation of the partnership agreement's morality clause. $5 million in damages, plus injunctions that would prevent David from working in our industry for 3 years. My lawyer, Rohan Patel, had outdone himself. By noon, the office was in chaos. I watched from the coffee shop across the street as employees streamed out of the building, probably sent home while David and the lawyers tried to figure out how screwed he really was. My phone rang constantly, friends, family, business contacts, all wanting to know if the email was real. I let most calls go to voicemail, but when my mechanic buddy Mick called, I answered. Jesus Christ, Eli, is it true about Lena and David? Every word. I sipped my coffee, watching David's BMW get towed from the parking garage. Amazing how fast repo men worked when you had the right connections. Damn, brother. What are you going to do? I'm going to satisfy myself, Mick. For the first time in months, I'm going to do exactly what makes me happy. Need any help with that satisfaction? I smiled. Actually, yeah. Remember that custom garage David's so proud of? The one where he keeps his precious Porsche? The red one? Yeah, what about it? How would you like to help me repossess some collateral for the lawsuit? Mick's laugh was pure joy. Brother, I thought you'd never ask. That evening, while Lena and David were undoubtedly holed up in some cheap motel trying to figure out their next move, Mick and I paid a visit to David's downtown condo. The parking garage was easy enough to access. Security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned for exactly 37 minutes, just long enough for us to hook up David's $180,000 Porsche to Mick's flatbed truck. We didn't steal it. That would be illegal. We repossessed it as collateral for the pending lawsuit, perfectly legal under Massachusetts law when you had the right paperwork, which, thanks to Rohan, I did. We left a note on the empty parking space. Hope the baby likes public transportation. Management. The next morning brought fresh chaos. David's panicked voicemail started at 6 a.m. and continued every 15 minutes until noon. Lena tried calling from different numbers, probably borrowed phones, since I'd blocked her everywhere. But the real entertainment came when I arrived at the office to find a crowd gathered around the building's entrance. News vans, reporters, and what looked like half our client base, all wanting to know about the tech startup scandal that was trending on social media. Tara intercepted me at the elevator. Eli, thank God you're here. This is a disaster. The board is meeting in an hour, and they want answers. David's locked himself in his office, and Lena's been calling every 5 minutes crying. Crying? I pressed the elevator button. That's interesting. What's she crying about? About losing everything. About the company, the apartment, the wedding. She says you're destroying innocent lives over a misunderstanding. I laughed so hard that several reporters turned to look. Misunderstanding? Tara, she's pregnant with another man's child. She confessed to cheating on me for 3 months. She admitted they were planning to cut me out of my own company. Which part of that is a misunderstanding? The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside. Tara followed, her face flushed with anger. You're being vindictive, she hissed as the doors closed. This isn't like you, Eli. You're usually so reasonable, so forgiving. What happened to the man who always tried to see the best in people? He got satisfied right out of existence. I hit the button for the 15th floor. Turns out, when people show you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. The board meeting was a masterpiece of corporate theater. 8 venture capitalists and angel investors, all trying to understand how their golden boy startup had imploded overnight. David sat at one end of the conference table looking like he hadn't slept, while I calmly presented my evidence. Gentlemen, ladies, what we have here is a simple case of moral turpitude and fiduciary breach. I clicked through my presentation slides, each one documenting another betrayal. Hotel receipts charged to company accounts, personal use of company resources, and most importantly, a conspiracy to dilute my ownership stake through unauthorized share issuances. Board member Patricia Hendricks, a steel-haired woman who'd made millions in biotech, leaned forward. Mr. Greene, these are serious allegations. Mr. Lin, how do you respond? David cleared his throat, his voice shaky. This is all a misunderstanding. Yes, Lena and I developed feelings for each other, but there was no conspiracy. Eli's just hurt and lashing out. Hurt? I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the harbor. David, I'm not hurt. I'm satisfied. For the first time in months, I'm completely satisfied with how things are going. I turned back to the board. The patents are already transferred to my personal holding company. The intellectual property that makes this company valuable belongs to me, not us. You can choose to work with me going forward, or you can try to build a tech company with a CEO who doesn't understand the technology. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Finally, Patricia spoke. Mr. Lin, I think it would be best if you stepped down as CEO while we sort this out. David's face crumbled. Patricia, please, this company is my life. No, I said quietly. This company is my life. You were just along for the ride. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, media interviews, and the sweet satisfaction of watching my carefully laid plans unfold. David was officially removed as CEO, his company credit cards canceled, his access to all systems revoked. The board offered me full control of TechFlow, which I accepted graciously. Lena, meanwhile, had gone to ground. According to my private investigator, Detective Ray Sanders, a retired Boston cop with a talent for finding people who didn't want to be found, she and David were staying at a budget motel near the airport, paying cash and trying to figure out their next move. They're broke, Ray reported over coffee at my favorite diner. David's trust fund got frozen when his parents found out about the lawsuit. Lena's credit cards are maxed out, and she can't access any of the joint accounts since you closed them. What about jobs? David must have contacts in the industry. Ray chuckled. Word travels fast in tech circles. Nobody wants to touch either of them with a 10-foot pole. Turns out screwing over your business partner is bad for your reputation. I sipped my coffee, savoring the warmth and the news equally. And Lena? Marketing directors are a dime a dozen, especially ones with scandal attached. Plus, she's starting to show. Not many companies want to hire a pregnant woman who just publicly humiliated herself. That afternoon, I decided to visit the old neighborhood where Lena and I used to walk on Sunday mornings. The Riverside Park was nearly empty, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the crisp October air. I was sitting on our favorite bench, reading emails on my phone when a shadow fell across the screen. Hello, Eli. I looked up to see Lena standing there, and the change was shocking. Gone was the polished, confident woman who'd run our marketing department with ruthless efficiency. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her face showed the strain of the past week. Lena, you look... I paused, pretending to search for the right word. Satisfied. Is this the satisfaction you were talking about? She sat down beside me without invitation, close enough that I could smell the cheap motel soap she'd been using. Eli, please. We need to talk. I'm listening. This has gone far enough. I made a mistake, okay? I was confused, I was scared about our marriage, and David was there. But destroying both our lives isn't the answer. I turned to face her fully. Both our lives. Lena, my life has never been better. The company is thriving, I'm sleeping better than I have in months, and I wake up every morning knowing exactly who I can trust. How is that destroyed? Her eyes filled with tears. Real ones, not the crocodile tears she used to manipulate clients. You're destroying an innocent baby's future. This child didn't ask to be born into this mess. You're right, I said, and for a moment hope flickered in her eyes. The baby is innocent, but the baby isn't my responsibility. You made sure of that when you decided David would make a better father. I never said that. You said he satisfied you in ways I never could. You said he was better in bed, better in business, better in life. So congratulations. Now you get to find out just how satisfying he really is when the money runs out. Lena grabbed my arm. Eli, I'm begging you. Drop the lawsuit. Let David come back to the company. We can work something out. I stood up, gently removing her hand from my arm. We already worked something out, Lena. You chose David. David chose you. I chose to stop pretending I didn't know what was happening. But the company needs both of you. David has connections. He brings in clients. David is a glorified salesman with an MBA and a trust fund. The company needs innovation, patents, and actual technology. That's what I bring. David just brought betrayal and bad judgment. I started walking away, but her voice stopped me. What about love, Eli? What about the 5 years we had together? I turned back one last time. What about them? Were you thinking about those 5 years when you were in bed with David? Were you thinking about our love when you planned to cut me out of my own company? Were you thinking about our marriage when you decided to carry another man's child? She had no answer for that. That's what I thought. Enjoy your satisfaction, Lena. I know I'm enjoying mine. 2 weeks later, the inevitable confrontation came. I was working late at the office. Our office, since I now owned 100% of TechFlow Innovations, when David appeared in the doorway like a ghost of corporate past. Hello, Dave. Security let you up? He stepped inside, and I could see the desperation in his eyes. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his shoes scuffed, and he'd lost weight. I told them I was here to negotiate. Negotiate what? Your surrender? Eli, this has to stop. The lawsuit, the public humiliation, freezing me out of the industry, it's enough. You've made your point. I leaned back in my chair, studying the man who'd been my best friend since college. Have I? Because I'm not sure you understand the point yet. I understand that you're angry. Angry? I laughed. Dave, angry was 3 months ago when I first suspected something. Angry was when I found the hotel receipts. This isn't anger anymore. This is satisfaction. He sat down across from my desk without being invited. Look, I know what we did was wrong, but destroying both our lives won't change anything. Your life, Dave. I'm not destroying my life. I'm improving it by removing the people who were poisoning it. What about Lena? She's pregnant, Eli. She needs medical care. Stability? Then you better find a way to provide that. You wanted to play house with my wife. Now you get to play provider, too. David's composure finally cracked. Damn it, Eli. This isn't just about us anymore. There's a baby coming. An innocent child who's going to suffer because you can't forgive a mistake. I stood up slowly, placing my hands flat on the desk. A mistake? Dave, a mistake is forgetting to file a patent application on time. A mistake is hiring the wrong developer. Screwing your best friend's wife for 3 months while planning to steal his company? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. A series of choices. Fine. We made bad choices. But what you're doing now, what I'm doing now is exactly what you and Lena taught me to do. I'm satisfying myself without worrying about who gets hurt in the process. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. David's face went through several expressions: anger, fear, resignation, and finally something like understanding. You're not going to stop, are you? Stop? Dave, I'm just getting started. I walked around the desk to face him directly. See, you and Lena thought you were so clever, planning your little coup, but you forgot something important. I built this company. Every patent, every innovation, every breakthrough that makes TechFlow valuable came from my brain, my work, my sleepless nights. I brought in the funding. You brought in money. Oh, I created something worth funding. There's a difference. I moved closer, and David instinctively leaned back in his chair. Here's what's going to happen, Dave. The lawsuit is going to proceed. You're going to lose because the evidence is overwhelming. The judgment will follow you for years, making it impossible to get credit, start a new business, or rebuild your reputation. And every time someone Googles your name, they'll find the story of how David Lynn betrayed his best friend and business partner. Eli, I'm not finished. My voice dropped to a whisper. Lena is going to discover that the man who satisfied her so much better than I did can't actually provide for her and the baby. She's going to watch you struggle and fail, and she's going to remember what she gave up for a few months of excitement. David stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. You're insane. This obsession with revenge is going to destroy you too. Revenge? I smiled. Dave, this isn't revenge. Revenge would be irrational, emotional, destructive. This is just business. Cold, calculated, and completely legal business. The old Eli would never have done this. The old Eli trusted people. The old Eli believed in friendship and loyalty and keeping your word. You and Lena killed that Eli. What you're dealing with now is what's left. David headed for the door, then stopped. What if I told you Lena wants to come back? What if she realized she made a mistake and wants to fix things? I considered the question seriously. Then I'd tell her the same thing I'm telling you. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are permanent. And some satisfaction comes from watching the people who hurt you live with the consequences of their choices. He left without another word. The final act began 3 weeks later with a phone call from Tara. I almost didn't answer. She'd been calling regularly, trying to play peacemaker between me and her former allies. Eli, you need to know something. Lena collapsed at the grocery store yesterday. She's in the hospital. I felt nothing. No concern, no guilt, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Is she okay? She's dehydrated and malnourished. The stress, the cheap motel, David losing his mind trying to find work. It's all catching up to her. And you're telling me this because? Because she's asking for you. She wants to see you. I hung up. But an hour later, I found myself driving to Massachusetts General Hospital anyway. Not because I cared about Lena's well-being, but because I wanted to see the final chapter of her story with my own eyes. She was in a private room. David must have found some money somewhere, or maybe his parents had finally taken pity on their son's situation. She looked small in the hospital bed, her face pale and drawn. Eli. Her voice was barely a whisper. You came. I was curious. I sat in the visitor's chair, maintaining my distance. Tara said you collapsed. The baby. She placed a protective hand on her barely visible bump. The doctor says everything's fine, but I haven't been taking care of myself. Where's David? Job interview. Some startup in Portland is considering him for a VP position. She laughed bitterly. VP of a company with 6 employees and no funding, but it's the only offer he's gotten. I said nothing. Eli, I need you to know something. I never meant for it to go this far. The affair, yes, but not the rest of it. David convinced me that you were holding us back, that we could do better without you. I was stupid and selfish, but I never wanted to destroy you. You didn't destroy me, Lena. You revealed me. What does that mean? It means you showed me who I really am when I stopped trying to be the nice guy, when I stopped forgiving and forgetting and making excuses for people who don't deserve them. She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks onto the hospital pillow. I lost everything. My job, my home, my friends. Everyone knows what I did. The shame follows me everywhere. Good. The word came out flat and cold, and Lena flinched as if I'd slapped her. Good? Eli, I'm carrying a child. Your former best friend's child, but still an innocent baby. How is any of this good? I leaned forward in my chair. It's good because it's honest. For the first time in months, everyone knows exactly who you are. No more pretending, no more manipulation, no more lies. Just consequences. I made a mistake. You made choices. Every day for 3 months, you chose to betray me. Every time you met David at that hotel, every time you lied about working late, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to love me while planning to cut me out of my own company. Those were choices. But the baby will be fine. David will find work eventually, even if it's not the executive position he thinks he deserves. You'll find a way to survive, because that's what people do. But you'll do it knowing that your choices have consequences, and some of those consequences last forever. I stood to leave, but her voice stopped me one last time. Do you feel satisfied now, Eli? Is this what satisfaction looks like to you? I turned back to face her, this woman who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my trust for 5 years, before throwing it all away for a few months of excitement. You know what, Lena? I really am satisfied. Not because you're suffering, I'm not cruel enough to enjoy that, but because I finally understand something important. What's that? I understand that I don't need you. I don't need David. I don't need anyone who sees my loyalty and kindness as weaknesses to be exploited. For the first time in years, I'm surrounded only by people who respect me, who value what I bring to their lives, who would never dream of betraying me. That sounds lonely. It sounds peaceful. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Lena, don't call me again. Don't have Tara call me. Don't send messages through mutual friends. We're done. Permanently. What if the baby? The baby isn't my responsibility. You made sure of that when you chose David as the father. Live with your choices. I left her there in that hospital bed, crying for a life she'd thrown away and a man she'd never really known. As I walked through the hospital corridors, past other people dealing with real tragedies and genuine crises, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The Tech Industry Conference in San Francisco was everything I'd hoped it would be. TechFlow Innovations was the star of the show, with our latest hardware innovations generating buzz and investment interest from every major player in Silicon Valley. I was accepting congratulations from a group of venture capitalists when I saw a familiar face across the crowded hotel bar. David, looking older and more worn than his 35 years, was nursing a beer alone at a corner table. Our eyes met across the room. He raised his glass slightly in what might have been a salute or an acknowledgement of defeat. I nodded back, then returned to my conversation with the investors. Later, as I was heading to my suite, David intercepted me at the elevator. "Congratulations," he said. "I heard about the acquisition offer from Google. $50 million is impressive." $65 million, actually. The bidding war drove up the price. He winced. "Right. Well, congratulations anyway." The elevator arrived, and we both got in. David hit the button for the third floor. I hit the button for the penthouse. "How's Lena?" I asked, not because I cared, but because the silence was awkward. "She's good. The baby was born healthy. A girl. We named her Sophie." "That's nice?" "Eli, I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for how it happened. You deserved better from both of us." The elevator stopped at the third floor. David stepped out, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I understand now why you did what you did. I probably would have done the same thing." "No, Dave. You would have tried to be reasonable and forgiving and work things out. That's the difference between us." The doors closed, and I rode the rest of the way to the penthouse alone. In my suite, I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the San Francisco Bay. The city lights twinkled below like stars, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of foghorns calling ships safely to harbor. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "Google wants to schedule a meeting for tomorrow. They're ready to make their final offer." I smiled and typed back, "Tell them I'm satisfied with the current terms. Let's close the deal." Satisfied. It was a word that had taken on new meaning over the past year. Not the shallow satisfaction of revenge or the temporary satisfaction of getting even, but the deep, lasting satisfaction of knowing exactly who I was and what I was worth. I'd built something valuable, something that would outlast the betrayals and the drama and the people who'd tried to tear it down. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to protect what was mine, and to never again mistake kindness for weakness. The wine was excellent, the view was spectacular, and tomorrow I would sell my company for more money than I'd ever dreamed of making. But the real satisfaction came from something simpler, the knowledge that I'd survived the worst betrayal of my life and emerged stronger, smarter, and completely at peace with who I'd become. Some people might call what I'd done to David and Lena cruel or excessive, but those people had never been betrayed by the two people they trusted most in the world. They'd never had their life's work stolen or their marriage destroyed by people who thought they were too nice to fight back. I'd shown them exactly how wrong they were about that. And honestly, that felt pretty damn satisfying.